I'm joined now by the man who can most aptly and most easily be described as the gay Byrne of Western Australia. He's from Carrick-on-Shore originally, and he's Gerry Gannon. Well, Gerry, it's a long way from Carrick-on-Shore to being the gay Byrne of Western Australia.
Well, that's what they say, yes, and I'm flattered, actually. I don't know if Gay would be flattered to have a nondescript Irishman in Western Australia compared to him, but
there's nothing nondescript about what you do here. You know, even in the taxi coming in from the airport, and we mentioned your name, and the taxi driver says, "Oh, Gerry Gannon, of course, he's fabulous." You do this morning show now, just like Gay does at home.
Yeah.
But before all that, tell us about Carrick-on-Shore, what you were doing there, and how you got to this particular position you now have.
Well, I was born in Galway in the West Coast, and then came to Carrick-on-Shore in 1972 to play with the Cowboys, and met my wife there and settled down and got married. And in 1979 I went into local radio, which was just starting in those days, and I had a radio station in the garage of my house in Dunbayne in Carrick-on-Shore.
Well, that was a bit illegal and bold.
It was not just a bit, it was totally illegal and totally bold. But there was a demand for it. The community wanted it, so a few of us were supplying it. And then we moved to Clonmel, where we set up a much larger radio station, CBC, which in fact did, in a roundabout way, get its license when the whole thing became legal. It had to close down and then start anew, but it is there as the origins of CBC.
Of course, you do know that you're not endearing yourself to me by not giving a compliment to RTE when you say there was a need for it, but we'll let that one go. It's all legalised now at home, I'm sure, as you're aware.
Yeah.
So you were in the music business in a band, and then into radio. Why then did you decide to go to Australia?
Well, I'd always wanted to come to Australia ever since I was a little boy. Ever since I was about 12, I'd had this notion of Australia as a pioneering place where hard effort was rewarded. I had romantic notions about Australia, the outback, the Flying Doctor, even in those days I knew about. And so one day it was destiny that I was going to come here.
What was your first job?
My first job, after I'd knocked on the doors of 21 radio stations in Sydney looking for a job doing anything, I got 2 weeks casual work with the ABC as a current affairs reporter. A job, in fact, that I hadn't actually ever done before, but I felt that I could do it. I didn't think there was any great mystery about it.
Did you sort of nudge them a little in your direction? Did you tell them a few little fibs maybe along the way?
Well, somebody told me that the executive producer who was interviewing me was a fan of hardware stores, and if I were to talk about hardware stores, I would endear myself to him, and I did. We talked about hardware stores in Ireland for about 30 minutes, and I dragged the back of my mind to find out what it was that I did know about hardware stores in Ireland. But eventually he gave me 2 weeks' work, and then they put me on a 6-week contract, which kept rolling. And
well, we won't give him any marks for imagination, but we certainly give you marks, I think, for bravery and pluck. And your contract then continued on?
Yes, and then they asked me to come to Perth in Western Australia, that there was a vacancy in the office here, the current affairs office here. Yeah. And some of my colleagues in Sydney said, well, you don't want to go to Perth. It's the end of the earth. It's a 1950s city. But I came here and I found that this was, to me, the most wonderful place on earth, not just Perth, but Western Australia as well. Well, it's the biggest state in the Federation. If you travel from Perth, say, to Kununurra, which is up in the northwest of the state, it's the equivalent of going from London to Helsinki. That just gives you some idea. There are 3 distinctly different climates in this state. The topography, particularly up in the Kimberley, is breathtaking. In fact, I have stipulated in my will that my ashes be scattered in the Kimberley. I really feel so moved by the Kimberley.
You're going to make the people of Carrick-on-Shore very sad if you talk like that. But obviously you love the place.
I do, yes.
What about the Irish community here in general? Because I'm sure you have a handle on just where they're at the moment. Is life a little bit difficult for some of them at the moment because of this recession? Or are there also compensatory factors?
Well, the Irish, I guess, don't occupy a position of privilege any more than any other group of people, but they are well regarded here, they are well liked. In fact, the Irish have got such a stake in the heritage of Australia, and particularly Western Australia, because when the first fleet came, there were Irish on it. The first people to open up parts of Western Australia were Irish. They worked alongside the Chinese in building railways in the gold mines in Kalgoorlie. Paddy Hannon, who was the man who discovered gold in Kalgoorlie, was from County Clare, and his memory is still revered in Kalgoorlie and indeed all over the state. So the Irish have been in everything. In every facet of life you will find some Irish people. In politics, even today, we've got Senator Jim McKiernan, who's from County Cavan. He represents Western Australia in the Senate in Canberra. There is so much tradition of the Irish here that we feel so at home here.
What about the quality of life today for the Irish community?
Well, I think if you just look around here today and see what must be the best part of a couple of thousand people sitting out here enjoying a picnic, overlooking this magnificent Swan River. I mean, that's the quality of life which you cannot buy anywhere else in the world, as far as I'm concerned. If you're on the dole or you're unemployed, you can still come to the park for a picnic on a Sunday and enjoy this magnificent view. There is a great quality of life here. Housing here is cheaper than it is anywhere else in the country, so you get better value for your housing. Every second or third person's got a pool in their backyard. Mind you, that takes a lot of looking after, Bibi.
Yeah, it's hard labour.
But when it's 40 degrees in the water bag, it's nice to have a pool in your backyard.
Yeah. You mentioned there, though, if you were on the dole, you could still afford to have a picnic. Are there many of the Irish people having difficulty nowadays getting employment?
Well, I haven't actually looked at if the Irish are any worse off than any other section of community, but again, it's a question of merit and energy and effort here. If you've got the energy and you put in the effort, you derive the merit.
Yeah.
And so the Irish are very hard workers. They're always known as hard workers. And in fact, many of the Irish who are here will tell you that if they worked this hard back in Ireland, they really wouldn't be as far ahead as they are now.
But isn't it also true to say that there's a certain element of unemployment? For example, it's 11% in Perth at the moment.
11%.
Yeah. Do I understand you then that if you can find the job and if you are prepared to work hard, you will be rewarded?
Of course.
But there is a small question mark at the moment over finding certain types of jobs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jobs are hard to come by. 11% is high. We were the state in the late 80s that in fact boomed, and many other people from all over the country came to Western Australia. That's part of the reason we've got high unemployment. We've also got a big New Zealand population here. It's a bit like the Irish going to England, the Kiwis coming here. So that's one of the reasons we've got high unemployment. But things are about to take an upturn. We are the biggest miner in the country, and a lot of the Irish are involved in mining as well. As I said, they're absolutely everywhere. So I think, you know, the Irish who are looking for work, if they're working as hard at looking for work as they do when they work, they will find work.
Yeah.
And when they do, they'll hold on to it and do well.
So responsibly, we could encourage some Irish, if they're interested in a life in Western Australia, we could encourage them responsibly to pursue it. Isn't that what you're saying?
Sure, yes. But by all means, but investigate it thoroughly. Do not look at the rosy picture. I mean, we've got problems in Western Australia, as I said. We've got unemployment. We've got a juvenile crime problem at the moment that we're scratching our heads over. It is not nirvana here, but hey, it's a heck of a good lifestyle, and it's good enough for me and my family at the moment.
Gerry Gannon, thank you very much indeed.
It's been my pleasure, Bibi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.